Hello and welcome to this game review. So in this one we had the Petrov defense and white played this move d3, which is of course not very good because we're closing our bishop on f1. It can go to g2, but there it's not going to be as effective. And after knight c6 and the natural d5, it seemed that only black can be better here due to his space advantage. So generally I would not recommend playing like this. Instead, we should learn some kind of line against the Petrov. Maybe d4, maybe taking here and then something here. The position is kind of symmetrical, but white is a little bit ahead in development because he started the game. But here it turned out kind of okay. White developed the pieces, rook e1 and the bishop g5, but bishop g5 is a bit weird, provoking f6, which is generally a useful move for black here to defend this pawn, and the bishop can go to f7, and the bishop will have to go back, and white just kind of has less space, so it's not really great as white. Okay, knight f6, knight c3, h6, bishop goes back. But at this point, we should have played a bit more dynamically, and white has a little bit less space, so he should basically trade pieces, so we couldn't get rid of this bishop, play knight e4 or d5, and then try to do something next, maybe c3, d4, and the white should eventually break out, and this bishop will eventually be quite strong on this diagonal. But after bishop d2, again, white is kind of suffering with space. Bishop f5, black develops all the pieces, and it seems white doesn't really know what to do. He plays a3 really quickly, and this whole game was very quickly played by white, which is not a very good sign, because if we want to improve, we must think, and then we must analyze what we have fought. So it's not really about the result. When we play these elite chess training games, we don't really care about the result, or at least we shouldn't care too much, because, well, we are not professional chess players. So at this point, we are just learning how to play chess. So we should be able to firstly think and then figure out what went wrong. But moves like a3 kind of show that white is not really thinking and just makes some random move. But white could improve his position by exchanging some more pieces, maybe putting the bishop on c3. And he should be more or less okay, though black is slightly maybe better due to space. a3, bishop h3. So black kind of helps white by exchanging pieces. So now after the pieces are exchanged, white is no longer worse, because even though he still has less space, there are less pieces on the board, so all of the pieces can find decent squares. So now f5, queen d5, and this was very risky by black, but he could still go queen f7, and after the exchange, now this pawn on e5 is slightly weak, the pawn belongs on f6, after bishop c3 for example, white has a simple plan of doubling and putting pressure on e5, and he is slightly better. But king h8, now white finds this nice tactic of knight takes e5, using the pin on the queen, and now white is a pawn ahead, and here white plays queen d4 quite quickly, and again, this is what I mean by not playing so quickly. Of course, queen d4 is a natural move, keeping the pin, but even better was to exchange queens with queen e6. And if the queens are exchanged, then this endgame is winning, because white has the extra pawn and also the open file, and black has no compensation. So queen d4, rook a d8, rook e2, this is fine. And here bishop c3 is played, which makes sense. And black finds this kind of small tactic, bishop takes g3, but I assume white had calculated this. Queen takes g7, and now we get this rook endgame, which is more or less winning for white for two reasons. He has the extra pawn, he also has the e-file, and, well, I guess three reasons. He has more targets to attack. So here white plays f4, but this is quite a strange move. There's no reason to play f4 here. I guess f4 is threatened by black, so that's kind of painful to look at, but I think we should just improve our rooks, and after this we can play rook e7, and black's f4 hasn't really done much. Because now after f4 we can't really attack this weakness, for example with the king. But still this is winning, and a few moves. White plays a bit strangely, rook h4, it's kind of hard to understand this move, which was played in 6 seconds. Not sure what the rook is supposed to do here, as it's never going to take this pawn. Instead, we should just double on the e-file, invade, and win in very simple ways. But rook h4, this is of course fine, but c3 kind of creates a weakness. Now b4, and white's rooks are simply uncoordinated, though he is still winning. I wouldn't suggest playing like this. Now d4, king e2. So here white plays quite well, pushing the passed pawns. Still, I'm not sure why the rook is not somewhere else, but this all works out, and eventually white picks up a lot of pawns, stops the passed pawn, and from here it's quite an easy win. So to answer the question, how's your opening? Well, the opening is quite passive. I wouldn't recommend playing like this with white. Generally, in the Petrov, we should take the pawn, because if here then queen e2 turns out quite good for white. Otherwise, black usually has to play d6 and then take, and at the end of all this, white is slightly ahead in development. He can start playing c4, knight c3, castles, bishop f4, and he can enjoy a small positional advantage. Though, of course, if black plays well, he can equalize, but such is chess.